Well, now for the pulse on drones, one of the top trends for this year. This according to Harvard Business Review. We are joined by Sam Chester of Clarity Capital. Thank you so much for being with us.
It's a pleasure as always.
Well, we saw drones taking a big spotlight in 2015 and also set to be a big story in 2016. How's Israel doing on this front?
So the story for Israel is really interesting because in some sense, Israel's really the creator, the pioneer of the drone industry. It really started in the 1970s for various reasons. Israel's very sophisticated military homegrown military industry saw an opportunity and started developing many of the drone technologies that now you see, whether it's the U.S. military in Afghanistan and Pakistan, or whether it's other countries, other militaries, and now increasingly outside of the military as well. So Israel in many ways can say they kind of made up the brand. And not only did they make the brand in the 1970s, but according to figures that were just put out last year, Israel is also the largest, not net, but gross exporter of drone technology around the world. So you look at countries like Brazil, you look at countries in Europe, in Eastern Europe, in India, and Southeast Asia. Israel has the largest share of the market for exporting these drones. But the key thing to remember there is they're exporting military drones.
Right.
Israel's sector is 90% plus focused on the military side.
Right. Do you see it evolving and looking more toward the civilian side?
So that's what's really exciting here, which is the industry as a whole is also 90% focused on the military side. And that's sort of one of the reasons why Israel's in that sweet spot. But what's happened over the last just 8 months to about a year is that the non-military side is now really, so to speak, taking off. The commercial side. When we say commercial, we mean agriculture, we mean utilities, we mean any number of construction, search and rescue. And also the consumer side already took off about 2 years ago. Consumer, we mean usually taking photos. So the non-military side is really what's starting to take off. And for Israel, it's a challenge because for Israel really wasn't ready for that. And Israeli companies, not until really the last year, we're starting to pivot toward the non-military side of the coin.
So they got onto this a bit too slow, you'd say?
Well, so that's what's also interesting, because when you think typically of what's a successful Israeli tech company, usually a successful Israeli tech company is not the one that's going to be the next Intel and making the next platform, the next drone, so to speak, that everyone's going to be using, but they're going to be the startups that are finding the most challenging technical questions and providing really sophisticated technical solutions. And that's what we're finally starting to see happen. If I could, I think what's worth identifying is what are the key challenges the consumer and the commercial drone space are facing? What is really stopping them from, flooding our airspace? And some of the issues quickly, command and control, how you can control this device when it's in the air, sense and avoid, that's a major one. The airspace fills up with small commercial drones. How do they avoid each other and how do they avoid trees? Those are the issues that really Israeli companies are engaging. Israeli companies like Dronomy are providing autonomous drones, ones that you don't have to have a human pilot control. So it really becomes what we imagine when we think of robotics.
But on the civilian side, what are these good for? Aside from the obvious, such as Amazon, that will deliver our goods that we bought online to our homes eventually, right?
I think one thing you're pointing to, which is really important, which is branding. Branding right now for drones remains military. And to the extent it's non-military, people tend to think of it in the consumer sense of, I'll spend $400 and instead of buying an expensive camera, I'll buy a drone that can take pictures in a whole new way. But it's the commercial space. It's having drones become commonplace in agriculture. It's having drones that are able to fly across major expanses of territory and take sophisticated sensory images of terrain that is blocking a railroad, that is blocking a bridge. Those are the things companies like Sensibilize, Israeli startups are providing the technical solutions that really can then go across the world, match up with other countries' drone platforms, and make a major difference in the industry.
All right, well, just give us a word or two when it comes to apps.
So I think apps is interesting that you mentioned it. There's an Israeli drone company called Percepto, and what they're doing, which is really interesting, is they're trying to create an app market for drones. They're trying to say people at home will be able to, with their open source technology, design their own apps and add those to drones, and that's something that if Israeli companies can get ahead of, it'll be really great.
Well, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention, Sam Chester. Well, that wraps up our show today. Do stay tuned here every day for all your global economic coverage. I'm Natalie Ehrlich from the Jaffa Port in Tel Aviv. Thank you so much for watching.